Once again, I am greeting all my colleague panelists and all the participants from all part of this world who are connected to us through this beautiful webinar. Uh, Before starting the session, I would like to comment on the theme, and the theme says safety issues in education, healthcare, and auxiliary services. We have divided the entire world into two time zones. One is pre-corona and another one is the post-corona. The corona has at one time brought to all of us a serious challenge, not only in the field of education and healthcare, but in almost all the fields because the entire world came to and stand still. We are having eminent panelists coming from all different uh, disciplines. We are having Dr. Geeta Krishnan, Dr. Rajiv Gera, Professor Chris Pillai, and Mr. Daniel, who are known for their contributions made before COVID and continuing contributions being made during the period of this pandemic. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to quote one slok here. I will try to translate for those who are not uh, very much familiar with Sanskrit. But the sloka says, Apadam apatanti nam hitopayati hetutam matrijanga hivatsasya stambhi bhavati bandhane. This is very apt sloka, and it says during the period of calamities, it happens, then even your well-wisher become an obstacle for you. Similarly, when the calf is being tied up with the cow using the cow leg as stand, as pole, it happened. So during the COVID, the health and the education, the two most prominent economic activities, has come to all of us as something seriously and severely been bottlenecked because of the spread of COVID-19. But a problem is problem until the solution is not known. We are using technologies for our betterment since long back. I need not to get into that. But yes, the moment coronavirus forced us to remain within the four walls, we quickly switched over to the virtual mode. Though there were many challenges, whether we talk about education or we talk about the telemedicine, we were on to technology absolutely. And the entire world being within the four walls started interacting with one another, imparting education or getting consultation for their ailment from the doctors. And no sooner we used this technology, we found ourselves amidst numerous opportunities that has come in our way. So the entire challenge was to cope up with the situation and to bring forth the new things that the world can have. The virtual interaction, virtual meeting, virtual cultural assimilation, everything that started taking place virtually allowed us to maintain social distancing, allowed us to keep ourselves protected from coronavirus, and also allowed us to know so many new things, which we will be talking about in the subsequent sessions. Of course, first I would like to begin with the education. And in order to talk about education, who can be a better person to talk about education other than uh, Daniel, who has been into the education sector and has been contributing a lot in the European Union. So I would like to request Professor Daniel to throw some light on the the situation that the entire world has tried get rid of all the things that has come on the way. So his experience and expertise from the Europe would be the first hand information that we will be getting from the horse's mouth. Please allow me to invite Professor Daniel on the podium. Professor Daniel, please.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for inviting me in this important conference, and congratulations for organizing this big event, which is very important in those days that the world is passing. I will bring an economic review. COVID-19 has demonstrated the need to review national and international economic policies in the face of emergencies. However, the post-COVID-19 economic recovery will require a new policy mentality, as many capitalist economies may be stuck in a long post-COVID-19 depression. Economic history is replete with the balance of payment crisis caused by exogenous risks to trade and financial flows. Because of this, many emergencies economies would like to recover from COVID-19 recession in a faster and more sustainability way, but there must be effective policy and there must also be adequate international support. The situation changed when we moved to large open economies that issue international reserves currency in the case of United States, Europe, and Japan, or have a relatively closed financial system and capital account as in the case of China. Governments around the world have taken extensive measures to combat the negative effect of the crisis. Financial package announced they aim to mitigate the impact of declining economic activity and maintain productive capacity. Business flow support has been the main purpose of such measures, and they have focused primarily on extending tax filing deadlines. Countries have also taken or are planning to take over temporary state ownership or firms and have implemented measures to help firms retain their workers through short-term employment schemes or wage subsidies. The EU long-term budget, complete with the Next Generation EU initiative, which is a temporary instrument designed to boost the recovery, will be the largest stimulus package ever financed through the EU budget. A total of 1.8 trillion euro will help rebuild the post-COVID-19 Europe. It will be a greener, more digital, and more resilient Europe. The new long-term budget will increase flexibility mechanism to guarantee it has the capacity to address unfrozen needs. It is a budget. It not fit only today's retails, but also for tomorrow uncertainties. On 10 November 2020, an agreement was reached between the European Parliament and EU countries in the Council on the next long-term EU budget and next generation EU. This agreement will reinforce specific program under the long-term budget for 2021 to 2027 by a total of 15 billion euros. To the Albanian case, the coronavirus appeared in Albania for the first time in 9 March 2020. Following the spread of new coronavirus, the Council of Ministers of Albania decided to declare a state of natural disaster throughout the Republic of Albania. In response to the extraordinary situation, the Investment Council Secretariat, in close cooperation with the Ministry of Finance and Economy, launched a survey on the impact assessment of consequences deriving from COVID-19 pandemic on business activity in Albania for the purpose to identify main issues and suggestions from the business perspective. Based on this survey, all economic sector considered to be negatively impacted. 97% of companies expect their activity to be very negatively or negatively impacted. Only agriculture has 4.8 expectation not to be affected. Also, 62% of exporters expect to be very negatively impacted. In overall, 45% of companies totally stopped working during COVID-19, while the other 53% have continued to work totally or partly. Among all economic sectors, tourism is the most affected with a 75% activity closure. Agriculture continue to work partly or totally at 81%. As it is, the examination to annual turnover, regardless of size or sector, all companies have the same expectation on COVID-19 impact to their annual turnover. 80% of companies estimate more than 20 this line of their annual turnover. The Albanian government, in support of the enterprises, approved two economic packages. Current situation, some of Europe countries continue to be quarantined, some partly. Albania has applied the restriction of movement of people with certain schedules. The incidence of effects of and deaths in Europe and Albania continue to be problematic because of the COVID-19. Small and medium enterprises, as well the manufacturing sector and textile industry and tourism, are the activities more affected by the situation of COVID-19. Spring 2021 remain hopeful for all after the vaccination of the population by COVID-19. This is a general situation that I bring to you.
Uh, Professor Daniel, uh, if I say that the entire Europe has strategized differently in order to cope up with this COVID situation, especially in terms of protecting the healthcare and the economy uh, uh, in large, different strategies were adopted. Like if you talk about the first strategy that majority of the countries they adopted was crush coronavirus, and crushing through trying to fight with whatever known medicine or whatever known way of fighting corona was there. The second strategy is to fight instead of protecting oneself, to fight, and then finally to support. So when we talk about Finland, when we talk about Germany, when we talk about, of course, Sweden, different strategies were adopted. Which particular way coronavirus was tackled properly, or in the most, you can say, significant way when we talk about Europe as a whole? Can you throw some light on that?
I mentioned the strategy that European Council and the Parliament made for a budget in long terms, not only to fight the coronavirus, but to restruct the economy and to rebuild the economy and the other problems that will be in the future, like in the other sector, in the healthcare and the education. European Union for sure is an let's say an union, a federation in terms of policy and economy. But every country has different strategy because the situation is not the same. The experience is not the same. So sometimes the rules are expected not the same in the different countries, or different countries have different mentality. Like in Balkan, it's different from the other Europe because you mentioned the social distance is very important, but to adapt the rules sometimes it's very difficult.
Uh, Mr. Daniel, what I believe the reaction of Europe to that of Asia was quite different when we talk about tackling strategy for uh, coronavirus against coronavirus in the field of education and in the field of healthcare. In the field of education, uh, some of the countries well are affluent country, I would say. They could have gone online and they could have done a lot good. But if we consider the countries, Asian countries like Bangladesh, like India, or like Nepal, or Pakistan for that matter, the technological support, the resources that were not that much readily available. So shifting mode paradigm shift was not that easy. Considering a country which is not at all affluent, what kind of suggestion you would like to put forward in order to have a better education system amidst ongoing pandemic?
Well, I have so this year every country has tried to apply it, online education. Uh, some countries like who has poor economy like Bangladesh, etc., etc. Maybe that has not the possibility everyone to has an iPad or a tablet or a PC to follow online education. In Albania, the Ministry of Education has supported this with a dedicated internet line and some dedicated equipment. But I can say that it's 100% covered. Uh, this learning or teaching for everyone. They have applied some classroom to be one per week and some other classroom to be online. So they have managed like this. But in Europe, I can say that it's the same. Everywhere is the same. The economic conditions there are different because uh, some people maybe hasn't the possibility or hasn't one equipment in their home to follow online uh, lecturing. Albanian National
Uh,
Degree has supported guaranteeing some lecturing, so the for the kids to follow the lesson from the TV, but it was
okay,
a choice.
uh, Dr. Gera, you had been in Africa, especially in Ethiopia. I worked there for a brief period, around 2, 3 years, and I know the African continent. I have seen the African continent very closely, and I know that, especially at Ethiopia, I'm talking about where you have been too, is most affected because of AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And when we talk about coronavirus amidst AIDS, where the population is already struggling to safeguard their own immunity, and this coronavirus, which is so quickly or community spread is so quick, when the community in question is not having that good immunity or that good immune system. So during the period of COVID, what would be your suggestion for such a country which is having prevalent of AIDS like or the other sort of health issues? What's your uh, take on that, Dr. Rajiv Gera?
Uh, Thanks, Professor, and thanks for having me on the panel. Just to start, this pandemic came as a surprise. So I don't think any country was prepared to deal on specific related to that. So it was more of a behavior change, communication, which played a major role, specifically using sanitizer, mask, and social distancing. So that was irrespective of the population groups. It was for everyone. And then here in Ethiopia, basically, they conducted community search of the cases where they were screening for all these factor, hypertension, diabetes, or anybody has comorbidity or known case of HIV. Thankfully, we don't have much reporting from immunocompromised cases, the cases of COVID-19. So I can say in the beginning, there was no specific target, but it was a part of the package of the communication as well as the treatment. So I think our biggest challenge here was basically, I think it applies to whole world, thinking of the health facility and continuity of health services. Because as you rightly said, the people are poor and they mostly go to the public health facilities, public sector facilities. And if the workers are not safe, they will stop providing services. So we could see some dip in the services in the beginning uh, across the country, but we anticipated this thing very in the very beginning, and we started reacting to that. So right messages, the provision of PPE was done, and I can tell you the development sector is very big in Ethiopia. So, and there's a pool fund. So all partners contributed, and whatever funding was committed, along with the government funding, 20%, roughly 20% was taken off from all the funding. And definitely, we could not travel in the field, we could not conduct meetings. There was a lot of savings also, which were diverted for the response. So now we are moving in that direction. When the vaccine is coming, we are identifying a specific individual with comorbidities and like the HIV and all. So in past, yes, this was not a specific; it was generic. But moving forward, we are focusing on that. Thank you. Over to you, Doctor. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Gera. Now, I would like to invite Professor Chris with a very relevant question that has come in almost everyone's mind. And that is, when we talk about education, provisioning of education online, the behavior of the student becomes the bigger challenge, especially when the students are not allowed to interact with their peer group members, especially when the students are sitting inside the room and continuously looking at the screen, and also when the students they are not having the physical exercises to ventilate their extra energy that they are having in during their youthful days. So this behavior of the student becomes I mean, I'm an educationist and I understand how often the students are plunging into the depression or high level of stress because they are not getting their peer group interaction. So, how do you see, Professor Chris, this paradigm shift from physical classroom to virtual classroom scenario amidst COVID?
Thank you, Professor Pandey. Thank you to the fellow panelists on the session. Professor Pandey, this, as we've heard from the keynote speaker before open the session, we are in the new normal. And what I take from the keynote speaker's address was there are tremendous learning opportunities emerging from the pandemic. He also reminded us that what worked yesterday will or may not necessarily work today. And he shared with us that there should be no looking back, and we need to look at moving forward and what we can take from this COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we know that the pandemic has affected people of all nationalities, different levels of education, income, gender, and social status. And that had a severe impact on higher education and higher education around the world. Now, we all know a university in a conventional way is a space, a physical space where students connect on a social basis. I was a student many years ago. I enjoyed my student days. You do things out of the normal, but that is part of a student life. But come 2020, I can give an example of my own university, which is the University of South Africa. We are one of the largest open distance learning universities in Africa, one of 5 mega universities in the world. And we had to, because we are open distance and e-learning, we don't have close proximity to our students. But we were in the fortunate position that we were adopting a blended approach from 2015, where we had the conventional paper-based teaching and coupled with that the online teaching. And that was to address the great divide in accessibility to technology in the country. Now, we were fortunate as a university who had these platforms that could adapt to the new normal. Now, I refer here now to residential or contact universities where students go to classes on a daily basis, as you mentioned in your question, and meet the professor and meet the lecturer and engage with the lecturer. And I believe that, as you said, sir, is a behavioral change. Because at this moment in time, here in South Africa, where I sit in Johannesburg, our universities are still closed in the sense that the capacity that is allowed to attend a university at any given time is there should be 40% staff or students at the institution during this period now. We have what we call a level 1 lockdown period. We had 5 levels of lockdown. We are now on the lowest level, which is level 1, but there are still restrictions in place with all social distancing and all the other protocols in place. Now, in terms of students adapting from a physical environment to a virtual environment, that is part of a behavioral change. It will also require of us as teachers to change our own paradigms by using media such as these to connect with students. And the media that we use should just not be a visual, a face-to-face things. I mean, the activities that we create for students to go and do outside of their workspace, wherever they are, that should be part of the stimulus and the stimulating characteristics that should take students to another level of engagement other than the face-to-face type of engagement. So it's not going to come overnight. I mean, I've been a university teacher for many years. I'm still learning new things. I mean, come May this year, we were suddenly thrown into a situation where we were told that all your semester exams are going to be online, fully online. In the past, the University of South Africa will hire a venue, a hall, and get 1,000 students to sit in the hall, have their ID cards with them, scan themselves. They will have security posted there, paper, they will hire invigilators, they will hire furniture. Now all that's gone. We wrote our May exams, the first semester exams online. Yes, there were challenges, there were issues with technology and the system crashing with when 15,000 students have to press the button and submit the results or the exam answers at the same time. It jams the system. So we've learned from those, and in this semester, as I speak now, we are currently busy with the second semester exam. We've refined the processes. We've developed webinars 2 months before this exam started. Information webinars to inform students. This is how you should go about doing it. Students came back to us and says, we don't have data. We cannot afford data. Well, the university gave students 30 gigs of data for 2 months, at 30 gigs per month, to say, now you have the data, there's no excuse for you not to come and write the exam. In extreme cases where students could not come and write the exams in the May-June period, we deferred them now to the October-November period so that they could get systems, processes, and technical gadgets in place for them to do. But at the end of the day, sir, it is a completely new shift. And I think curricula will have to change, learning pedagogy will have to change, method of teaching will have to change. And these are the challenges and opportunities that we should be taking forward as we move forward in the discussion. Thank you, sir.
Professor Chris, since I belong to Amity University, uh, and Amity University is the largest private university in India with 1.75 lakhs of students enrolled and imparting education. And also, Amity University is one of the university which has been granted permission to run online programs by UGC and all. So, of course, we were technically sound to switch over quickly and very comfortably when there was a complete lockdown. No, no denial. But uh, as an associate of an institution having a robust teaching learning system, what I have come across, it's not only the physical health for which we are worried, we are also worried about the mental health and hundreds of different types of problems that I saw within this stipulated 4 5 months of lockdown. I met with many such cases where the students were into deep panic. The moment there was pronouncement of examination, the panicking was
Correct.
evident. Students panicking. Sir, what will happen if I fail to submit my answer? What will happen if there is a power failure? Especially, I'm talking about the remote areas of Jharkhand where the electric supply is not that good. Sir, what will happen if the format that I have adopted, like one of the case I am sharing, uploading the answer sheet was 30 MB allowed. One of the student called me in panic, sir, my file is 35 MB and it is not getting uploaded. What shall I do? And that created a lot of pressure not only on student but on their parents as well, because the student started thinking that it is going to take my one academic year if I fail to submit. This is a compulsory course, mandatory course, I have to pass it. Similarly, we came across the situation where the students were doing or using unfair means. Since initially when we offered mid semester examination, that was in April, I'm sharing, because it's a public platform and I believe everyone should get into the brainstorm. We faced the situation where the students were asked to write examination online with multiple choice questions and objective. By and large, it was hybrid mode, but by and large objective questions. So, and camera was not on. So what the students were doing, one of the student was sitting with the question, another friend not really into the examination was sitting with the Google Guru. He was using Google, and then the entire answers were being taken from Google, and then it was being shared. Also, we noticed that Mr. X, instead of Mr. X, Mr. Y, who happened to be the topper, was asked to sit on the system and to go with the answers. That was a big challenge for all of us. And if it is allowed, then those who were honest, it was gross injustice with such type of student, those who were taking examination very honestly. So for we teacher giving examination without putting student into panic, expecting that student is going to have all sort of honesty, and still yet the evaluation process is maintained as pious as it can be, that was really a difficult task. But in the final examination, we tried to improvise the technology. And Dr. Geeta Krishnan, who is from IIT Madras, I believe IIT is the heart of technology, especially in India. So, who can be a better person to talk about technology and I mean, the the allied associated problems due to technological glitches that one can face. So I would like to invite Dr. Geeta Krishnan ji to throw some light on how to maintain physical and mental health while using technology without any glitch, and to ensure the smooth teaching learning process. Thank you, and Dr. Geeta Krishnan.
Thank you, Professor Pandey. Thank you to IISSM for having me here today. So very interesting perspectives from my fellow panelists as well. And very interesting to know that in South Africa, they have a huge hall in which they have these exams going on for the final semester for the students, end semester examinations. Uh, so let me first, before I get to technology, I think if we have to uh, pay attention to one thing, I think is to be more humane in the way we teach, in the way we approach education. I think education has become more mechanical over the last several decades, and we've been doing it more like a clockwork, where we teach students more in a lecture mode, give examinations, evaluate the students, grade them, right? And it's become more of a transaction. The personal connection that is required for true education that our keynote speaker also mentioned about, I think that's kind of been reduced to a large extent. I think now is the time, though we are actually lecturing through technology, through remote learning, I think it's a time for us to see how we can get back that connect. It's easier to do physically, but it's not impossible to do virtually as well. For example, if you have a 60-minute class, we encourage, we have a teaching learning center here at IIT Madras, and there we encourage our faculty to pursue what is called as active learning. So we take a 60-minute class or a 50-minute class, and then we divide it into three portions. We have a lecture for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we have an activity. Again, a lecture for about 10 to 12 minutes, an activity, and so on. Right? So when you have this kind of an active learning mode, the students become more participatory and they learn better. If we can translate similar ideas to our online teaching, I think this will be really, really helpful. So if instead of having a continuous 15-minute lecture, where you're constantly talking and the students have to look at you and they kind of zone out after some time, if we can have capsules of instruction, say about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and then give them an activity, and then encourage them to participate back, that can really be helpful. One of the things that I had noticed, I'd been teaching the last 9 months online, and one of the things that I had noticed, especially in a country like India, there is a huge difference between people in urban areas and people in rural areas. And quite often, expecting everybody to be participating in a class is close to impossible. If we have some understanding of what is the degree of network connectivity different students have, then you can pick students who have good connectivity to be able to share things online in the class. And then students who do not have good connectivity, maybe you spend time with them later over the phone, talking to them. This is extra effort, but that's where I think we need to be more human in how we approach education. One of the things that IIT Madras has done is from tomorrow we are going to have our end semester examinations, and we have partnered with a private entity to be conducting in-person exams throughout the country. Just like you have the JEE advanced exams, the IIT Madras final exams are going to be conducted in centers across the country, and we have identified centers such that no student needs to travel more than 20-25 kilometers to reach the center. So using technology for evaluation is going to be difficult. That does not mean we should not evaluate. I think we need to rethink how we evaluate. If you have a large class, yes, maybe you need to have an exam, you need to have multiple choice questions, but you can always come up with random questions, questions that are randomized, questions where numbers are changed for different candidates, and therefore the answers may not be the same, right? So those are extra efforts so that students don't necessarily, cheat. There has also been some initiatives in which students have to give exams sitting in front of a camera, and you look at where they are observing. Are they clicking answers? Are they taking more time than usual to answer a question, and so on and so forth? You can do data analysis to see how people have answered different questions, find out anomalies, right? Besides all this, I think we need to look at other ways that you can evaluate. We need to have more trust with the students. We need to think about ways like take-home exams. We need to have in-person interviews, vivas. If you have a smaller class of say 20, 30 students, You can always give time of about 15-20 minutes for each student where you have a one-to-one interaction. And when you do that, you actually get very good feedback also on what the students have learned. So it's not only about evaluating the students, but you're also evaluating yourself, how well you have taught. Right? So we need to think innovatively. We need to think differently from what we have been doing, from a teacher-centric way of lecturing. We need to move to a student-centric way of learning. Give them more opportunities. Give them more ways they can learn, and show that they have learned. Prove themselves. Thank you for the
Dr.
time.
Gita, you are very right. It is not only evaluating the student, it is evaluating ourselves as well. And I do endorse your statement. I'm saying this because even my personal experience is sometimes the students, they are so smart, so tricky. They will see the questions, and when they find that the questions for them, simply they shut down and they write a mail using their mobile phone that, sir, my system was down, my net was not proper, and so I missed the exam. What shall I do? So please allow me to write once again. So such type of thing happens, and we have to evaluate ourselves how smartly we have put a student under this evaluation process. Students are
So,
also
if
very
I may,
smart.
you can
Oh, yeah, please.
respond to that. Yeah. So if you look at the JEE advanced examination, this time we told the students that if you missed the JEE advanced, because of COVID-19, you can take it again the following year, right? So that's again part of being humane, right? If we always have to give the benefit of the doubt to the student, right? Just like the third umpire gives the benefit of the doubt to the batsman, we give the
You are
benefit of
right.
the doubt to the
You are right. We should give benefit of doubt to the students. But what would you do when different students are coming with different alibi and they are saying that I missed exam because of this, because of that? And when you try to, like I am saying, when we try to figure out, we notice that the students using phone through the same IP address, same internet dongle, using which he was writing examination through laptop. That means if the system is down, it should be down for all the devices. How it can be? And also we noticed, we caught some of the student who said, "Sir, my Amazon portal was not working." When we tried to look into through our IT support, we found that it was working very properly. So you see, and of course we do give benefit of doubt to the students, but and normally we give a benefit of doubt to students because we are more concerned about their mental health. We don't want to put students under pressure. We do
yes.
understand that the students, they are very much vulnerable, very much sensitive to the pressure. They may not, I mean, we have some 10, 20 cases across India we came across about the attempt to suicide or suicide is committed by the students who were into the panic or who were having some sort of pressure. So considering that the students, they have a tender mind and tender heart, so let's give them some support by saying, okay, don't worry, you will have yet another opportunity. I do remember UGC and MHRD. We should be thankful to MHRD and UGC, who very nicely declared that it is the prerogative of the institution to look into the situation and to devise whether the examination can be given or not. If the examination cannot be given, especially for non-final year students, students can be promoted and the student can be given opportunity that if you are not happy with your previous performance, based appraisal system, you can always write examination as and when the normalcy uh, comes or normalcy is restored. So we are that much concerned. But the most challenging thing is when we are trying to trade off between the real education and management of the mental health of the student, the psychology of the student. Students, they are devising so many new things in order to bunk, in order to cheat. When you are conducting class, students may be there appearing in your panel that the student is logged in, but the student is in the washroom, student is in the sports field or somewhere else. So what the best we are doing, we are calling name, we are giving them ice breaking exercise on a regular interval, and we are trying to assess them under continuous assessment. Okay, so and so, please answer this. So these are the things, the smartness we are trying to show before student, because student is student and we are teacher. We have to be better in any way. So we are smarter, no doubt, but still, sometime it happens. And the second thing is, all the students are not equally technology savvy. We have to accept this fact. All the students, of course, the students, they are much better in terms of technology than our generation, but still all the students, they are not techno savvy. All the students, they are not having technical short of brain. So those students who are handling history or sociology, and if you are asking them to handle the technology which is supposed to be handled by IITians, naturally the student is going to be flatter. And if the student is continuously facing such type of situation, student will plunge into depression. So we need to take care of that also. That is also our challenge. Since Professor Chris Pillai has already stated that in South Africa he has handled the situation and has been handling the situation since 2015. I would like to have the comment from Professor Chris Pillai on this issue: how to ensure mental health of the student amidst all the challenges that the teachers are facing. Professor Chris Pillai.
Thank you, Professor Pandey. Yes, the mental health challenges that students currently experience with the transition or the change to online and digital learning and the lack of physical space and contact is going to create some mental and psychological challenges and problems for the student. And one can expect, and as Dr. Ramudarai also said, that we have to come up with novel ways of engaging students to ensure that they do not have this barrier or they do not see the screen in front of them as a mode of information. Information should be more personalized, and the delivery of information should also have a more personal touch. And as we're doing it now, it's impersonal, but we can connect. But as a student who is trying to internalize and understand and conceptualize and interpret information, I think that's where frustration comes up in students who study law, for example. I mean, it has to give them scenarios, case studies, examples to get them engaged in terms of understanding that. On the other hand, as we've heard, in the sciences, it's not all that easy, but it may be easier for students to take sciences because they have to work with the close proximity of laboratories and so forth. But for the mental health and well-being, it's an individualized thing. Universities can come up with various student support programs, student learning assistance program. There are various interventions that one can utilize or introduce. But at the end of the day, I maintain it is the student must take personal responsibility. In as much as our students, UNISA students, said, I don't have data to submit my examination paper. We give you the data, and if you can't do it beyond that, then I cannot take charge of that. You have to take personal control of yourself and try and deal with it. Yes, if you have issues, if a student has issues, we can engage with them on a different basis, on a more personal basis. But when you deal with large numbers and large cohorts of students, it may not necessarily be all that easy all the time. But we have to look at it humanely, humanitarianly, and look at each case. And it is not the student's fault at the end of the day. But the student must understand he or she must take responsibility for his or her own learning initiatives. And progress and processes of learning and making advances in the learning experience when they attend the university. I mean, that's what they're coming here for, to get a better education. But now the challenges is the delivery and the methodology that we're going to use, which cuts across both ways, as you said. You know, we as teachers and as the students on the other side will also have to make some compromises and really take the opportunities that come with it. And opportunities are not necessarily negative. I see them as positives. Thank you.
Professor Chris, what we have, I'm just sharing my experience. During the initial days of COVID pandemic, I'm talking about the March and the April months, when COVID was a big threat. It was visualized as big threat. Now we are so much courageous in terms of fighting with COVID, because we have seen the situation, we have seen the revival and the survival rate improving. We have seen that the people, they are getting infected because of coronavirus and coming back home safely. And so there is some sort of courage, what I am saying. But during the initial days, the students, I'm talking about one of the student who got his both the parents infected because of this corona. He was put into isolation, quarantined, and then he was behaving through the mail and the messages like he will do any harm to himself. So those are the time when we need to intervene. And I believe, I'm pretty sure you will be agreeing to me. I believe each and every institution, irrespective of whether it is for the medical science or for technology or for social sciences or for behavioral sciences or occupational sciences, each and every institution needs the counselor, the psychologist, to deal with such type of situation. We, in all hurry burry, we appointed three psychologists so that all the three psychologists can form a psychological clinic, and the number and everything was shared with each and every student, and the students were asked, the parents were asked, that if you notice anything not normal amongst your family member or amongst yourself, please get in touch with this counseling team. And trust me, this helped us a lot. We not only saved the students from getting into depression, but also we ensured the continued efficient learning by those students. Otherwise, there was every possibility that the student could have not coped up with such type of situation. Moving to yet another dimension of what we are talking about, safety in education and care. When we are talking about safety and when we are talking about coronavirus and we are trying to correlate the two with laboratory, there are courses, there are uh, sorry, programs where lab work is essential. You can't do everything using I'm in virtual mode, getting into virtual mode, especially, I'm sorry, just a minute. Especially in case of technology also, the virtual is not that possible, and sometimes we are forced to call students to attend the laboratory and all. In the normal circumstance, we are having army of all the people around, security people, the lab technician, the lab assistant, blah blah blah. Because of this corona, we are forced to have limited number of staff inside the laboratory, and we have divided the students into 3 and 4 groups. Still some 10, 12 students, they are coming in the lab, and their security is the real concern. Because if they are not properly been guided, they may commit mistake and they may get impacted because of. So in such a situation, how to tackle, how to cope up where the virtual lab is not really relevant. So I would like Dr. Geeta Krishnan ji to respond to this query.
Yes. So, in fact, I had that as one of the points when I noted down what I need to speak about. There is experimental, studies. There are theoretical studies. The theoretical studies, it's possible to do it in a virtual mode, but experimental studies need students to be here. So, in particular, if you look at research scholars, PhD students who are doing experimental work, they need to be here. So, one of the things we've done at IIT Madras is we have prioritized the arrival of students who need to access labs first, as opposed to students who are doing theoretical studies. In terms of lab work for as part of the coursework, so far the past year we have not had any lab courses. So we are going to allow the students, maybe in a future date, to come and spend about a week to 2 weeks earlier, and then complete whatever lab work that they had to do in the previous semesters in one go. Right. So that is the only way that I see, a possibility without exposing the students to dangers. Professor Pandey.
Professor Chris, how South African universities they are taking this situation, how they are getting into the experimental learning.
Yes, well, during the COVID, when the national lockdown was announced on the 21st of March, all universities, all higher education schools were closed for 3 weeks, the 21-day national lockdown. Now, during that time, I don't work at a residential or contact university. I'm teaching at a distance learning university. But the residential universities or the contact universities, they were caught off guard, because the lecturers or the teachers there would go and prepare the lecture and go to a class and present the lecture. But this didn't happen at this point in time. As the lockdown phases became more relaxed from level 5 to level 4, the Minister of Education, Higher Education, announced a phased-in process for experimental and for students who are doing work in the natural sciences, medical sciences, clinical sciences, and so forth. And to accommodate those students in this year and to prevent them from losing out on the academic year, the ministry made a proposal that students who are in their final year or postgraduate students, firstly, can come into laboratories under very controlled conditions and they can finish their programs. The next phase would be the honors students or the third year, final year students who need to exit in terms of their qualification. So it was very controlled. It did impact on the students' preparation perhaps because it caught everybody off guard. But the university made provisions to accommodate, or the government proposed to the vice chancellors, this is the way that you should utilize to accommodate students who are doing studies in the medical or health sciences or clinical sciences. So in that way, most universities managed to accommodate those students. However, I must say that there were some universities, you'll know in South Africa, we're still a country of great inequalities. We have historically African black universities who were a legacy of apartheid. They were not so properly resourced. The students and the location of those universities were in very rural areas. Those universities are still playing catch up. And out of the 26 higher education or universities in the country, 7 of them, we got a report yesterday saying that 7 of those universities will have to defer their academic program into 2021. So their first intake for 2021 will be starting in March next year. So because not all universities were so properly resourced, some are still have to play catch up. So there were that we to salvage students doing studies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chris. Now, moving to yet another area of our discussion today, that is the healthcare. I would like to invite Dr. Rajiv Gera to have his uh, opinion on the the potential of different countries to develop vaccine to fight COVID, to develop immunity, and the standardization of the vaccine based on your experience and based on your interaction with the UN people, since you are very much closely associated with UN people and WHO people, I hope we will be having this from the horse's mouth. So, how can we standardize the vaccine and how can we ensure that the vaccine that is being developed is effective and properly distributed?
Yeah, thanks, Professor Pandey. The world has the capacity to produce vaccine at scale, but these times have been very, very challenging, but at the same time unprecedented in terms of learning also, because it was test of the capacity and the science, how fast we can move into this space. So in March 2020, on the request of G20, there was a platform created, that is Accelerator, which had three, four components. One is basically making diagnostic accessible, then therapeutics, and the vaccine, and strengthening health system. So the vaccine is one of this, and that platform has been created as COVAX. The whole idea is basically in the vaccine industry is uh, how the manufacturers are confident the products they are making, it will be consumed or purchased. So there is always an uh, option of advanced market commitment, which comes through a pooling in the risk as well as the funding, and the large countries are using that. At the same time, because this pandemic is endemic and all countries are affected, so rich countries are always willing to purchase more than what they require. So in this sense, this platform, COVAX platform, there's a one challenge always. If uh, the vaccine comes in the market, the rich country will buy, and there will be inequities the world over, and the poor country will suffer. Thankfully, there is a platform which was Gavi. This is Alliance for the Vaccine. It works with the low income and middle income countries and provide new vaccine and routine immunization. So what do they do? And I think India is a big manufacturing hub for this. We have two institutions, especially Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech. Uh, so basically, they negotiate with the countries, they fix the price with the manufacturers. At the same time, they provide funding to these countries, and the countries have to contribute a little bit of amount so that they can introduce new vaccine in the system and avert not many deaths. So this system was working for decades. It has been 20 years, more than 20 years now. That came very handy in these circumstances. So Gavi is basically co-leading this effort along with the SEPI. SEPI is this a coalition for epidemic response innovation, who works on the technology and the research, and the WHO is part of that. And UNICEF, my organization, is basically into more procurement and the delivery. So that's how this platform has been created. What has been committed? This COVAX platform has reached out to countries. There are 57 countries which are eligible for receiving all funds. Then there are another 30 or 25 odd countries who can receive some help, but there are another country who can register on this platform to get the guarantee of vaccine availability. So there, the whole Europe also came in. So almost 190 countries are there on this platform. So what this COVAX has decided that in 2021 they will buy 4 billion doses of this vaccine, and every eligible country will be given 20% equivalent to 20% of their population, and where the population will be prioritized, especially initial first 3% will go to the health workers and the frontline workers, and then more than 55% people, and then the people who have comorbidity, they have other diseases like you initially mentioned, the hypertension, immunocompromised, or diabetes, or any heart disease, or the renal disease. So there are certain criteria. So countries are prioritizing, and now, as you know, the three vaccines are running ahead in the race. One is basically of that this AstraZeneca, which is basically doable for these countries. So there are plans that first tranche will come in first quarter of next year. So at least the countries will start. The second thing was given the volume, because in routine immunization we target infants and up to 2 years or 5 year children. So the biggest challenge was how to create this cold chain space, because this will require humongous space in terms of the cold chain. So the Gavi has a provision of providing health system strengthening support also. So that has come very handy. All countries have applied what additional space they require. Only challenge with the Pfizer vaccine is Pfizer and Moderna, which are this messenger RNA modified RNA vaccines. They are sub-zero temperature they require, and especially Pfizer requires minus 70, which no country has the capacity in developing countries. So that is left out of this platform for time being. But if need be, very few amount can be taken and given to the most high risk if need be. So I think the countries are targeting which are the traditional cold chain that is being given. So there are provision. I think the learnings from last 20 years for the vaccine manufacturing, procurement, and service deliveries are coming handy in these hours. So equity issue will be taken care of to some extent. So I always categorize country into this market into four. The rich countries will buy 100%, like many countries have done up to 500% or 600% to their population. Then this 20% of the poor countries will be covered. And something will come on the market also where the people can buy, which is not immediate, but that some vaccine will come out in the market. And third will be managing 80% of the population in poor countries. There the funding is being mobilized, so we see hope there as well. This will happen. So, but what is happening right now that rich countries are purchasing and 20% commitment is there. It is shaping the market. It is giving confidence to the manufacturer also that they can produce. So it will stabilize the market in a way. Moving forward, we will have vaccine available. Coming to the science and the safety of the vaccine and effectiveness of the vaccine, uh, this is a long process. The vaccine development it takes years or maybe a decade, but it has been really fastened up in just 9 months' time. So this is unprecedented. But when we see from in the inside, many work team were working in parallel. What happens once the research is done? After that, the approval will come, the production capacity will be developed, and then the in-country approval will happen or WHO pre-qualification happens. But this has happened simultaneously. So what is being done? Yes, it is not being compromised in terms of the sample being tested. Okay, so there is no compromise on the research protocol. The sample size has been reduced a bit, but the time has been reduced, but it is not compromised in terms of statistics there. And like you can see from the vaccine, they are 90% plus efficacy. So what has been really improved, already identifying the facilities who can manufacture vaccine. The manufacturers are also taking chance whether approval comes or not. They are producing, they are taking risk. Then in country approval also there is the provision of emergency use approvals. So it doesn't need to go through a year long process. It is emergency use. It has inherent element of a bit of risk, but given the magnitude of the problem, given the risk involved, it's very, very less. So many things are in future where vaccine is being enrolled, but one thing is there that there is no compromise on the safety part. So vaccines are safe. There are no reports of casualties, or definitely we take a number of vaccine induction and then how many cases happen. So that applies to all vaccines. It doesn't apply only to COVID, it applies to all vaccines. So all those parameters are taken into consideration. There is no compromise on the quality as well as safety. So what is being really worked on, more manufacturing approval process, in-country preparedness for the implementation. So I think this learning is going to play a huge, huge advantage to us in moving forward in other epidemics. Thank you. Over to you.
Assertion here. One is all are equal, but some are more equal than others. as George Orwell wrote in Animal Farm, all are equal, but some are more equal than others. So the rich countries, they are more equal than the poor countries when it comes to safety and security of the population. For the poor nations, undeveloped or least developed countries are concerned. The second thing is, since the entire vaccine which has been developed in a very short span of time, and yet it has not been seen from the long run perspective, do you think it is safe and it is not going to have side effect in the long run?
Uh, the, uh,
How it
so
has
far
been
the
ensured?
studies have been done. There are scientific protocols which have been applied, and after this all stringent test and following these protocols, the vaccines are being released. And when it comes to the approval, even for the emergency, all those data, all that data is basically reviewed, and on the basis of that, vaccine is approved. So, given the research involved and given the amount involved for the manufacturer, it is given that it is not different from other vaccine in terms of the safety. There are always some side effects, minor or major, but that is to all vaccines. But that has not come so far in this case of these vaccines. So if you know, there are more than 200 candidates, vaccine candidates. Only 3 have applied for the approval so far. So every vaccine candidate is being tested well before they come forward even for the approval. And once they come for the approval, it will go through a rigorous process of data review, the safety, efficacy, everything. So when it comes to the efficacy, definitely we can always compromise whether it is effective in 80% or 90%. But thankfully, right now, 3 candidates which are ahead of others are showing more than 90% efficacy. So safety is not being compromised. But as we move forward, there are always retrospective study and more data is collected. But for now, after testing, these vaccine only being introduced. Yeah. Thank you.
Having heard you, what we could believe that the world is moving towards safe hand with at least 3 vaccines into the race with permissions to be used or to be used for the marketing purposes, and we are expecting that these vaccines are going to protect, going to create a shield amongst all of us, and we are going to be safer in times to come. Now, moving to yet another important issue related to education and healthcare together. Education and healthcare are the two important ingredients for human capital formation and capacity building of any nation. And the education and healthcare is severely been compromised because of the presence of COVID. And so is the economy of the world, either taken at the macro level or taken at the micro level. Whether we talk about the economy of a nation or we talk about the economy of the globe, when the boundaries are closed, when the trading relations are stopped, when the workers are asked to go home, when the machines were stopped, when the workers were admitted to different medical centers for their medical care or health care, in nutshell, the economy was totally compromised or being hostaged because of the coronavirus. Now, taking economy back to the normalcy, taking economy back to the track, even when the COVID is not yet over, is a big challenge. So I would like to request Mr. Daniel to throw some light, being a student of economics, on how can we strategize to bring back the economy on the track.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Maybe after we will have the vaccine, the product that that are going to certificate, like Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, etc., or the other nations who are producing, like Russia or China, vaccines. In spring, maybe we will see and growing up a little bit or a breath of the world economy starting to breathe for 2020-21. I have seen some reports from UNCTAD and the World Bank, and they are hopeful for 2021 in September to have a normal situation of the global economy. For sure, not they are predicting a growing up very faster, but let's say to see an economy not like in September 2020, but with an hopeful and a normal economy.
A few seconds just putting your finger on the switch, but running the machine takes a lot of time. And so is the case when the nation is to be taken back. This mere expectation that by September 2021 the things would be fine and everything would be better and the vaccine, the entire world would be properly vaccinated and there would be no threat of coronavirus, and likewise, don't you think it is like a bit daydreaming that everything will be okay by tomorrow? I'm sorry, I'm not pessimist, but at least what I believe is the entire world needs additional attention. The entire world needs this to be taken full care of, with special attention given to the economic system revival. And we need the strategy. Like in case of India, I would like to say Narendra Modi ji has started saying that the partial lockdown will be there, and then he started figuring out that these are the areas where the production or the manufacturing can take place with all these precautions, etc., etc. But that is not whole and soul. Even government of India has given good package to different SMEs and all, so that some sort of employment creation be there. At least aggregate demand may go up, and at least somehow the economy may come back on the track. But it doesn't look that I mean rosy when we look into the statistics. If you look at the 2 or 3 quarters statistics, we don't get the same rosy picture as the World Bank has very recently cited that by September everything will be fine and the entire world would be better. So, shall we not go for plan B? Shouldn't we go for yet another strategy? Shouldn't we go to have the strategy of supporting the activities so that creating purchasing power in the hands of the people? Shouldn't we go for public work with all precautions, etc.?
Uh, may I say something? Uh, Now the world learn how to live with coronavirus, and we live together with coronavirus always because it will be present in our lives. So we learn how to adapt with new rules, and we for sure adapt the new strategies for the strong education, for a strong wealth care, and for a strong economy. Not to be not prepared like this situation that the world was. So this is why I say that in September 21 we'll have another chapter to rebuild not only the economy, but to rebuild the new strategies. The world maybe will be more prepared for another challenges, for another diseases. So the next year will be more better and more helpful for all of us.
I must salute your uh, the optimism, and also I wish that optimism become true. But still, I would like to have the opinion of all the eminent other members of the panel. So, to begin with, Dr. Geeta Krishnanji, how do you see the forthcoming or upcoming next 1 year is going to be in terms of the revival or survival of the economy?
So I think this is not really what do I say, a depression that we are seeing. It's just a pause that has happened in production in manufacturing because of the COVID situation. Once the vaccine is ready and people are assured things will be safe, we will pick up from where we left off. So it's just there's a gap. There is no drop. It's just we've stopped in a place. We'll continue from there, taking this time period away. That's what I feel.
Doctor,
I think by
sorry to interfere. I do believe there is a pause. There is no drop. But you see, when you stopped operating here, and then you have to have all the requirements that you were having hitherto. Naturally, you will be starting consuming what you have produced and put into the stock, and the inventory is being eaten up. Now, from this point, you need it, but immediately the production will not reach here. So there will be a gap, and we need to have that gap analysis. What and how this gap is going to be breezed up. That is the point of concern. Because so long we were using what we produced earlier and we stocked, and the entire stock is already been swollen up. Now we need another, and now today we started production. So the day you start production, the same day you don't start supplying. In the supply chain there is its own time. In the lifespan of the product we have the time for the creation of the product, manufacturing phase. So that manufacturing phase is really creating some threat, and that threat is to be minimized either by consumption curtailment and then compromising with the national employment and output, or putting additional effort, Japanese philosophy, where you go for the overproduction, overtime production and all, so that you can have the entire things in place within minimum stipulated time. So even though there is a pause, there was no pause in consumption. There was a pause in production, there was no pause in consumption, and that is the real challenge. How to how to ensure the continued and smooth supply of each and everything that we need. So that is my point.
Yeah, so I think essential commodities, I agree, but non-essential commodities, I think people will have to curtail their consumption. Just like instead of watching movies in theaters, people started watching on other over-the-air services. So people will
So
replace.
So we need to have the classification of the commodities that we are using every day. And so should be the policy of the government that yes, necessary commodities be put under additional force for the manufacturing or production, and non-essential commodities should be compromised for the time being. Very good.
I agree.
Dr. Rajiv, I would like to have your opinion how Africa is dealing with this situation in terms of bringing Africa back on the track, and what you think is going to be good for that. Sir, I think your microphone is mute.
So I can talk about Ethiopia, where I live. So what I see from health point of view, which bothers us also, there's a lot of crowd on the road, in restaurant, in all the places. Schools are opening up, and people are not following the protocols for the prevention of the infection. So I am not an economist, but what I can say, when it comes to the day-to-day activity of consumption, the activities are almost to the normal, irrespective of vaccine is there or not there. Yes, when we lose some saving over the time, uh, again we have to save, and that is incremental. So what you talk about economy, yes, it will take even countries or the people also to take time to recover, because they will have to be incremental in terms of their saving and recovering the losses, and maybe demarcate between essential and non-essential. So I think what essential is there, it's happening. So I see Ethiopia is on track right now. It's a buzzing with the activity all over, and production has started everywhere. And it was never a complete lockdown. So what makes the difference between countries where the complete lockdown was there and where it was partial? So Ethiopia, this was a conscious decision that people are poor, will not make them suffer. This was never a complete lockdown. So we could go to the market. Yes, economic activity came down hugely, but still it was running. Unlike India, where it was a complete lockdown, so that loss was big. So we don't see it is not recovering fast enough. 2021 will see good days. People will recover, economy will recover, vaccine will be available, most vulnerable will be vaccinated also, irrespective of rich country or poor country. And 2021 December or 2022 January onward, I think things will be very, very good, improving. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful. So you are even more optimistic. Mr. Daniel is expecting the things to be on track by September 2021. And you are thinking that the entire thing would be on the track by January or February. I I wish your words come true. And now over to Professor Chris. How do you see South Africa, and what is your opinion on the same?
Yes, no, thank you. Whilst also not being an economist, I can only speak from the university perspective. And my view is that universities that innovate during this time will come out stronger on the other side. And it's forcing universities now to re-examine how they teach, how they serve their students, how they deal with their staff and their alumni. I mean, in my university, last month was the first time we had a virtual graduation. So it's adapting to a new normal. And going forward, I share the sentiments of my fellow panelists that there are lessons that we have learned from this. And going forward, I think if everyone applies their minds and are committed to the process, we can come out stronger and learn from the experience, and also the new generation that's coming forward to give them perspectives to adapt and embrace the new challenges as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Chris. I can see on the screen 0000. So is time up, or we can have some 5-10 more minutes? I wish Anchor can just let us.
Sorry, sir, to interrupt, but I think it's time to wind up. If you can just conclude, sir.
Yeah, please just give me 2 minutes. Uh, Thank you, Dr. Geeta Krishnan, Dr. Aziv, Dr. Daniel, and Professor Chris for joining our discussion today. We had a discussion on a very, very crucial and important issue, and that is safety related to education, healthcare, and uh, auxiliary services. Yes, we are facing the challenge. Yes, it is not that easy to shift from the real to virtual, and then getting back from virtual to real, where the people has started saying that this virtual activities are better than the real activities. I wish we should continue working from home. 52% of the population in a survey spoke about that. So certainly the people has started enjoying this virtual activities, virtual interaction, virtual meeting, virtual get together, and virtual even convocation. As Professor Chris said, they had the virtual convocation as well. But yet we have to believe that this is not the normal. The normal would be only when there is vaccine. So long the vaccine is not been developed, is not been ensured, is not been properly distributed, and the entire globe is not properly been vaccinated. What is more important is to keep ourselves protected, and for that matter, we need to carry mask, and we need to have the sanitizer all the time with us. Thank you once again to all the eminent panelists, and thank you IISM to allow us to have a very nice discussion and deliberation on a very significant topic. With this, I would like to enchant Jai Hind. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.